I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we have a story that's all about change. None of us really likes change. I mean, we do things the way we do because it works for us. Maybe it's the system that was set up at work and it felt awkward at first, but now you've adapted and you're thriving. I mean, there's lots of examples. It's hard to let go of something like that that's working for you. So change, that's our big story tonight. In less than a month, the city of Portland will start a big experiment with a historic change. The way it runs government and the way 7,000 city employees interact with each other is going through a metamorphosis. And based on what we've seen over the last several years, I think things can only get better. I mean, we can hope. Currently, politicians, the elected city commissioners, are responsible for the huge city bureaus or offices. That's led to silos where those bureaus don't need to really cooperate with each other. They just need to please the politician in charge of them. Well, the new system is designed to bust up those silos and improve cooperation and the way the city functions in general. It's a huge deal, and city workers are already feeling the stress. Here's a recent email we got from a city worker named Debbie. I've worked for the city of Portland for the past 24 years, and even though all of the changes are scary and anxiety producing, I'm super excited. Mike Jordan and his team have been amazing communicators. Mike Jordan is the interim city administrator, the guy who's got his hands on the wheel, slowly kind of trying to turn the city ship to arrive at the land of change. And as we look for solutions to our big problems, we are definitely shining a light on him. We've already run a couple of reports with Jordan talking about what's coming, and some of you tell us that you do appreciate him. Dick wrote in to say, "I've watched your interviews with Mike Jordan and only have one comment. Can we clone him? We need people like him in charge of our most of our government offices that are so lacking in common sense and the ability to take action." Elaine sounds like that. She agrees. Thank you for your interviews with Mike Jordan. They are the only reason I understand at all the new government setup. It's so overwhelming that I had given up on processing any of the info about it until it's time for me to vote for a district rep. I'm not even clear on which district I'm in. And yes, I know where to find that information, but I only come out of my bunker when I spy Mike Jordan through my scope. Thanks, Elaine. I got to tell you, I have to agree. I think he's a great communicator and so far seems to be doing a terrific job. The legal change for the form of government, the new form, starts on January 1st. But the city is doing kind of a soft launch, starting the move to the new structure on July 1st. So what happens on that very first day, you say? It's a great question. Good for you for wondering. I asked the very same thing. In the meantime, if I'm somebody who works for the Water Bureau, do suddenly I have 2 or 3 bosses?
Well,
how confusing is that going to be to everybody?
If you work in the Water Bureau, unless you're the director or maybe the deputy director, you likely will not notice much change at all.
Okay.
We will still have commissioners in charge that we have had for over 100 years, and bureaus still technically report to those commissioners in charge. Now, what has happened in the last few months is that those commissioners have appointed deputy city administrators, interims, to serve in those roles as we begin to practice. But they have not relinquished their role as commissioner in charge. So it's a little confusing, but basically the way I'm looking at it is the commissioners in charge have really delegated the day-to-day operational authority to these deputies. They're still accountable to the commissioner in charge, and the commissioners in charge obviously still have budget authority. They're about to pass that new budget this week, I think. And so it can be a little confusing, but I think day-to-day operationally, I think pretty much these deputy CAs will be the ones that will be in charge.
Okay, so you've got the bureau and the director is reporting to the deputy.
Right. And there are multiple bureaus and offices in each of the service areas.
Okay.
So like Public Works or Economic and Community Development, multiple bureaus, multiple offices in each of those service areas.
And you heard him mention the budget. We actually shot that interview a couple of weeks ago. Last week they did pass the budget. So Jordan says the rank and file workers, for lack of a better term, really aren't going to notice much difference July 1st when the soft launch of the new system begins. But pretty much every bureau or office has someone in charge, and they are called the directors. They're at the top of the whole chart there. They will have a new boss on July 1st. It will be the deputy city administrator who is over their area. And while the politicians will still technically be in charge of the bureau, they're basically expected to keep their hands off as this new structure gets underway. And by the way, for you city workers, if you do see big changes and you want to share them with us, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, will you? Over time, everyone will need to change the way they think about working within the city bureaucracy, especially the folks in management. What do you think, big picture, some of the biggest challenges are going to be?
Well, change management's always hard. The role of the director, now that we have deputy city administrators, so what does that change the role of director? And
seems like it would.
What does that look like? Yeah. So we need to the whole change management process. And to be honest, we have historically reported up to 5 elected officials. And as a good manager, the first thing you want to do when you've been assigned to an elected official is you want to build a relationship with that elected official. And that's great, but then when it comes to reconciling differences between bureaus and between operational units that report to different elected officials, that can become really challenging. So getting everybody used to the fact that there's somebody in town that can call the ball and hold everybody accountable for it in a holistic way across the enterprise is going to be new for all of us. And we all have to get used to that new way of doing business. And I think I told you on the last time we spoke that one of the big advantages I saw to this is a level of transparency and accountability, a level of transparency of where decisions get made and where does the buck stop and who can you hold accountable. And I guarantee you, with a mayor and a city council who both can remove the city administrator on their own, the mayor unilaterally, the council with a 9-vote majority can remove the administrator, they're going to be holding what the elected officials want to get done in the city right in their rearview mirror all the time while they're trying to change and operate. So they will be held accountable. Therefore, they will hold everybody else accountable for getting the work done in a much more effective way than maybe we've been able to in the past.
Okay, still with me? So far we've learned that the City of Portland is going to do a soft launch July 1st for the new city structure. Most workers are not going to notice much of a difference, at least at first, but their managers definitely will. And after more than 100 years of elected politicians running huge bureaus, they will be turned over to professional administrators who ultimately answer to the mayor and the city council. Mike Jordan, the interim city administrator who is pushing the changes through, really believes this will be better for everyone. Do you expect that overall this is going to be better for the city?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm a firm believer in what the Charter Commission and what voters, I think a lot of people voted for in this, and that's professional management in the city. And I think even our electeds today, that was the one part of it. They may have disagreed about other parts, but I heard them loudly and clearly that they all believed that professional management was important for the city as it moves into, being a big city and big city problems. And I think they believe that that's the right way to go. I do too. It'll be clunky at first. It's brand new. We haven't done this in over 100 years, changed the form of government. So there'll be growing pains and change pains. But the trajectory of the city, getting it on this inflection and a different trajectory moving forward, I only see us getting better over the next 5-10 years. There'll be a lot of change in those 5 or 10 years. The culture will have to shift, that accountability and transparency issues. Those will all work their way through the system. 7,000 people don't change their behavior overnight. But I think the incentives will all be in the right place. They hire a really good, experienced professional to be that first city administrator. That mayor-city administrator duo will be just absolutely critical. And so if I was giving advice to your viewers, I would say, hey, pay a great amount of attention to all the electeds, but particularly the mayor's race. That person and who they hire as city administrator, they're going to be really important to the success of this in the first few years.
Yeah. Okay, voters, hope you heard that. As part of this change, the city has added another layer of management, by the way, the deputy city administrators that I mentioned earlier. There will be 6, one for each new program area, which will then hold several bureaus. Each bureau currently has someone at the top called a director, and they run the place. And in the past, they reported directly to the politician who was in charge of their bureau. Now, with this new system, that's going to change, sort of, I think. I wondered if each bureau will still need that position. Some of the directors, after all, make over $200,000 a year. Just a follow-up question.
Sure.
I could also hear some of our viewers saying, well, okay, if you have all these new deputy city administrators, because that's a new level of bureaucracy, essentially, maybe you don't need those directors, or maybe they don't need to be making the kind of money they're making.
I think those are legitimate questions. And I think as we work through these structural changes and who's doing what and how are different services within the city structured and who's accountable for them, I think there will be discussions about, do we need as many directors and do we need as many offices, and could some of these things be consolidated into others? So a good example is the Vibrant Communities service area. It has parks, which is a big bureau, and has all of the services within a big bureau that you might think. And what has also moved in there is the children's levy and the arts program. And I think just recently the P5, which are the performing arts centers downtown, have moved there. But all of those are relatively very small organizations, so maybe altogether 20 employees. They can be now supported completely by parks. They don't need new HR people or new IT support or they can all be supported because they can get consolidated into that structure to support them. And so there are efficiencies already that you can see by taking things that aren't real big and they get coupled with bigger organizations, and so they can get their services internally easier and more efficiently. We're going to look at those services also at an enterprise scale. So how we do HR in the city, I would expect over maybe 3 years that to change. And we will, just like I said about comms, we can apply that rule to HR and IT and procurement and then fleet and facilities.
Accounting.
Exactly.
Because each bureau has their own shop.
They do. Now we have central accounting and we have central HR, but I will tell you the big kids, you know, BES and water and transportation and fire and police, they all have people embedded in them that help with those services. And so, like comms, understanding what people do better across the enterprise helps you take a view that's different than a bureau by bureau by bureau view. And I think over time, more efficient, and to be honest, the more important thing is that we're more effective and we can move faster and apply human resource where it needs to be applied in a more fluid way. We struggle with that now.
Okay. Yeah, and the public gets frustrated over delays and expenses and where are my taxes going and all that. To be able to show them that you're delivering and moving quickly, that's a real bonus.
It could be, yes, and I think it will be over time.
All right, so we've learned the city of Portland will launch a soft rollout of the city's new structure on July 1st, less than a month away now. Most city workers won't notice a change, but their managers will. One of the biggest challenges will be getting people to change the way they've done things for decades. Change management's not easy, and the city is a big ship, but Mike Jordan is confident that it will change course. And while it may be a bit of a bumpy ride for a time, he believes in the end it's going to be a much better system for the people who live, work, and play in Portland. Hopefully he's right. So what do you think about Portland's new government structure? Let us know, will you? You could email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number's 503-226-5090. We always love hearing from you. Let us know what you're thinking. Coming up next on The Story, an update on the I-84 eyesore in Northeast Portland, the old Gordon's Fireplace building. Look what you've become. What the city may do this week to start cleaning things up. Plus, a years-long lawsuit against the state regarding Oregon's foster care system has come to an end with a settlement. We'll hear from advocates and the Oregon Department of Human Services to learn what it all means when The Story returns. Now to a follow-up on a KGW investigation into the old Gordon's Fireplace shop in Northeast Portland, what many call a graffiti eyesore, especially because of its visibility from the interstate. City leaders will vote on Wednesday whether to begin foreclosure on the building because of a tax lien. The property owner has unpaid fines totaling more than $20,000 for code enforcement violations. The developer had big plans, they told us, for renovation. They wanted to turn it into an apartment complex with businesses inside, but he said that rising construction costs and the permitting process held things up. When our Kyle Aboshi spoke with the developer in January, he asked about complaints and the city's growing list of code enforcement violations for things like graffiti, trash, and falling bricks.
What do you make of these fines?
I think it's a waste of time. Put the money and the effort into coming up with a solution instead of just continuously fining somebody. It's kind of childish.
All right, and now Kyle joins me. So the last time we did that story, I remember, I think the developers were saying, hey, we're going to go clean this up like in the next week.
Yeah, he sounded very optimistic, said, listen, within the next month or so, we hope to get moving. Look like construction costs were looking pretty good. Well, that was January.
Yeah, how'd that go?
We haven't seen any construction or renovation since then.
No. And if the city does go forward with this, what are the steps?
So it triggers a process. Notification is the key here. You've got to notify the neighbors, the IRS, even post in the newspaper there's foreclosure. It doesn't happen overnight. That's the important point here. Also, if at any point the owner wants to pay off those liens along with the interest and penalties associated with it, they'll get the building back. It comes off that foreclosure list.
And I could hear some people saying, well, look, it's just one building. Why all the fuss? But it's a pretty public building.
It's so visible. Think about the thousands of people who drive by there each and every day. I mean, it's probably the biggest billboard in the city of Portland, if you will.
Yeah, and what it says right now is graffiti is out of control in Portland, and there's no order here.
There's been no movement on that building as far as cleaning it up that we can see.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that story and the update to us, Kyle. Thank you. Now to an update on the mess in Oregon's foster care system. For 5 years, a lawsuit has been playing out trying to get better care for the thousands of kids there. Some reported abuse at the hands of their foster parents. Others were housed in hotels, offices, even refurbished jails, and at times sent out of state. Well, the lawsuit claimed that many of them were not getting their basic needs met. Now, the state has reached a settlement with the advocacy groups and the foster kids who sued. Going forward, Oregon's Department of Human Resources will need to make immeasurable improvements, and they'll have a neutral expert watching over them and providing guidance, making sure those changes are made. Okay, let's get into the details by taking a look at the original lawsuit. It was filed in 2019 against the state of Oregon's Department of Human Services. The advocacy groups Disability Rights Oregon and a national foster care advocacy group called A Better Childhood represented the plaintiffs. The suit actually had 10 named plaintiffs who spent time in Oregon's foster care system, but it became a class action lawsuit on behalf of all the kids in the system. The suit argues Oregon irregularly and infrequently assesses the needs of children in the foster care system, with the result that the child's medical, mental health, and social needs often remain unknown and unmet. It is time that Oregon is held accountable. Also, after more than a decade of reports, audits, and reviews exhaustively documenting these problems, DHS has failed to adequately redress the worsening conditions for foster children. The plaintiffs also argued that Oregon failed to protect kids from abuse, had too high of a rate of re-entry into the system, also didn't make case plans for kids in time, didn't place them in appropriate homes, and didn't adequately assess their health needs. Here's Emily Cooper, the legal director for Disability Rights Oregon.
The starkest example I can give is when Wyatt and Noah went to live with their resource family, the right information wasn't shared about which child had a heart condition and which child needed the medication. And what ended up happening is the wrong child got the heart medication. And so it could have hurt both babies forever.
Cooper says along with not getting basic needs met, a fundamental part of the case was addressing the allegations of abuse against kids in the system.
The legal term for it is maltreatment. UNI's word for it is kids getting hurt after they enter care. It shouldn't happen. And in Oregon, the rate of kids getting hurt after they enter care is double what the federal standard is. That is not what should happen. We are removing children from their parents and their families because of allegations of abuse, and then they're getting hurt again when they enter the system. And our number one settlement term, the very first thing we list is that the number of kids getting hurt once they enter care has got to go down.
The plaintiff's attorneys in the case say they're cautiously optimistic now about the settlement. The parties will agree on the appointment of that neutral expert, and their first report is due next spring. Here's Marcia Lowry with the national organization A Better Childhood.
We are hopeful that the state is committed to making the progress it needs. And if they don't, and we hope they will, if they don't, there will be consequences, and they ultimately could be held in contempt by the court. We hope it doesn't get to that, and we hope that the neutral will be able to work with the state, and the state will be cooperative. We have no reason to think they won't be, but there are consequences, and that's a very, very important element of the settlement, because there's no accountability right now if the state does a poor job. There will be accountability under this settlement agreement.
Now, for its part, the director of Oregon's Department of Human Services said in a statement, "We are grateful for the willingness of all involved in this litigation to come together to find ways to achieve our mutual goal of improving outcomes for Oregon children and families." Keep it right here. The story returns right after this. Before we go tonight, we wanted to celebrate. We got some weekend love from the Northwest Emmy Awards. We won an Emmy for evening newscast in market size 21 to 80. The one we submitted was our show focused on downtown Portland. Ashley Koch produced the show along with executive producer Colton Weekly. We also won an Emmy in the environmental category for our report's Tainted Waters, which focuses on nitrate contamination in the aquifer near Boardman in eastern Oregon. That's Celeste Ruiz, one of my colleagues who played a real key role in that series. And we won an Emmy for political reporting for our series on the Greater Idaho Movement. That's Shelley Swanke from our assignment desk, who played a pivotal role as well in that effort. We had so much fun that Colton and I posed for this silly video afterwards celebrating the win. We often tell you that we have a unique show here, and we are thrilled that you are watching us. And of course, none of this would happen without our talented directors behind the scenes. Michael Ferguson is in there tonight. Most other nights, it's Megan Keith, and our editors and photographers from our special reports, Stephen Wozni, John Goodwin, and ace editor Zach Carver, who is a wizard with video. Thanks to everybody for all you do. And for you at home, please tell your friends to check us out. You can find us live at 6:30 Monday through Friday or anytime on YouTube. In the meantime, that's the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching, and remember the story, our collective story, that never ends. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter is coming your way next. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.